at you. So if the blame falls on the gun of all your players, then who takes the fall? And yes, lawyers, they say let's ban them all. Ooh, they say let's ban them all. Keep it safe. They try to regulate. They can't stand that some choose to always have that choice. So if the blame falls on the gun of all your players, then who takes the fall? Yes, lawyers, they say let's ban them all. Ooh, they say let's ban them all. So if the blame falls on the gun of all your slayers, then who takes the fall? And yes, lawyers, they say let's ban them all. Yeah, so now slayers, they won't take the fall. And poor lawyers, they'll try to save us all. Ooh, they'll try to save us all. They'll try to save us all. No good can come from this. They'll try to save us all.
Everybody to another edition of the Rock Pile Report podcast. I'm your host, Bill's season ticket holder, Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. Guys, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. A resounding victory in the wild card round. We're moving on. It's Survive an Advanced season, and the Buffalo Bills just danced all over another football team in front of her. What more could you ask for? Really?
Well, look at that. I'm all chained up.
You look
chained up, ready to go. I got this as a Christmas gift. Let me pull it into focus. This is a oak wood cup, and it's charred on the inside, kind of like a bourbon barrel. I poured myself Eagle Rare yesterday and have been letting it simmer in this charred oak cup. So that's what I'm sipping on for tonight. Eagle Rare.
Guys, you see the way he looks right now? I told him he looks like a 1972 Taxi dispatcher. Like, he looks like he should be in the show Taxi with the accent of the guy from Perfect Strangers, Cousin Balky. Like, that haircut, those chains, the shirt that wide open with a Western European accent. Chris, cut the camera back to you. Guys, tell me that my description of how he should be is not spot on. I expect him yelling at a bunch of taxi drivers demanding to know who's making a pickup on 8th Street.
Exactly. That's how we do it.
Guys, we got a lot to talk about tonight, a lot to celebrate tonight, but I want to start with this. I had to have a conversation with my kid this weekend, and my wife had it, and I got to be present for it, and it was kind of funny. A conversation about Kyle Williams and my son. So my wife shows my son the video. She was watching the video of the Bills celebrating in the locker room. It's 2017. The Bills break the drought. They know they're going to the playoffs. Kyle Williams is there. Like, it's an emotional thing. And for full disclosure, I did cry a little bit when they brought Kyle Williams out on the field to do the game day entrance thing right before kickoff, I did tear up a bit. I'm not ashamed to admit it. And so my wife was at home and she shows my son the video of them in the locker room celebrating. She's like, well, that's Kai Williams. Here's Kai Williams and it's him and whatever. And my son had a very unexpected reaction to it. He looked at her and he was like, no, he can't. What are those kids doing in the locker room? And she had to explain to him, well, those are Kai Williams's kids and they got to go in the locker room to celebrate with them. And he goes, no, he can't have kids. He's a football player. It had literally never crossed my 4-year-old's mind that a football player could also be a dad to kids who look like they're about Jack's age. And then I got to watch him do the math. Here's my 4-year-old watching Kyle Williams celebrating in an NFL locker room with his kids. And then he immediately turns and looks at me. And I watch him kind of sizing me up. And Kai Williams, dad. Kai Williams, dad. And I can watch him doing the math in his head of well, this guy's a football player and a dad. I'm looking at my dad, and there's no way in hell he could ever be a football player. Chris, my son had to watch me sleeping on the living room floor with my feet on the couch because my lower back is shot.
That makes perfect sense.
So watching my son try to process the idea of, wait a minute, that guy's a dad. This is my dad. My dad is not like that dad. It really was a priceless moment. And I'll tell you what, for those of you who chime in when we leave and we record our videos leaving this stadium and everyone's like, oh, kid, you left early. You're bad fans. One, that's coming from a place of deep insecurity within yourselves. I don't care that I'm leaving early. Why do you care what I'm doing? You just wish you were in my shoes. Also, I've been doing this forever, right? I have been doing this for over a decade. And when I say that it's become old hat, it sounds elitist. But when I leave a wild card game early and we're recording in the car on the way home because I know that I'm going home to give my kids the towels that they were handing out, the rally towels that they were giving out. And I'm going to go home and get to see my kids' reaction. And then when we win, I get to watch them run around the house while we blast the shout song. And we get to have that moment together. When the Bills win and I'm home with my children, in that moment, I am Kyle Williams in the locker room in 2017, and I will never apologize to anyone for that. You will have to pry that feeling from my cold, dead hands. It means more to me than standing there in the stadium with a bunch of you people.
We also had a Seagram's bet that I got a drink because Drew said he was going to be. We put a tweet out that you were going to be in the stadium to see that, and I'm like, the fuck you are. You've never made legends of the game, so we've got this nice mini Calypso Colada from Ryan Rhodes.
Ralph Wilson Sr., your son was computing salaries. He's like, wait a minute. That guy's a dad. This is my dad. Why does my dad not have $1 million?
Ooh, that's
well,
rough.
son, your dad's not tough. Your dad's not tough, and he can't play 3-tech, 1-tech, or 5-tech. Ipso facto, we don't make that kind of cheddar, guys. Yeah. Oh yeah. How's that Seagram's hit you, Chris? Let the people see it.
Oh, they saw me chug it. I got a whole bunch of.
I love it.
Of wine. They got a whole bunch of wine cooler chains and chest hair. It's what every woman wants. It's what my wife wants.
Hang on. You holding. See, I said 70s taxi cab, taxi cab dispatcher. But when you hold that Seagram's, you look like you should be on a patio at Mickey Rat's in 1982. Hey, ladies, what's going on? I got some wine coolers. Do you remember when Seagram's did a whole, when Bruce, what's his face? Bruce Willis? Bruce Willis was the spokesperson for Seagram's, his blues band. Seagram's wine coolers, Seagram's. They were trying to make him cool. And then he did a whole series of commercials where he's trying to make Seagram's wine coolers sexy. Oh yeah, I'm wearing a turtleneck and a suit jacket in 1987.
That was hot. Has anybody watched Miami Vice?
Watch me order a Seagram's at the bar, and then both of these gorgeous women are just coming home with me. That is not it. Guys like Chris were drinking Seagram's. Look at him, folks.
Yeah.
Look at him. Guys, this may be the beginning of the next great defensive tackle prophecy in Bill's history. I hope so. I hope my son took a hard look and he goes, wait a minute, you mean to tell me if I don't grow up to be as great as Kyle Williams, that I'm going to end up like this guy, broken and crawling around down the floor in agony? Guys, this is our wild card recap. The Buffalo Bills 31, the Broncos 7. Let's hit you with the stats of the game. Bo Nix and Josh Allen passing. Chris, I somehow neglected to get that up in front of me.
Oh, it wasn't great. Everyone knows Bo Nix just had that one drive, 5 plays, touchdown, and then the Bills just dropped 31 unanswered.
Bo Nix, 13 of 22 for 144 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, and 2 sacks with a 93.7 rating. Josh Allen, 20 of 26, 272, 2 touchdowns, 2 sacks, 11 yards, a 135.4 passer rating. Now, non-quarterback rushing attempts. The Buffalo Bills 33, Denver 11 to 33 for non-quarterback rushing attempts. Running back James Cook, 23 carries, 120 yards, and 1 touchdown. Wide receiver Khalil Shakir, 8.9 yards after the catch per reception, led all wide receivers in average separation in the wild card round around the NFL. Linebacker Matt Milano, 1 sack, 5 tackles, 3 solo run stops, 1 reception allowed for 7 yards. Cornerback Pat Surtain from the Denver Broncos, 3 for 3 in coverage for 79 yards. Second most allowed on the team. 1 touchdown allowed, which is just his second of the NFL season. And then the drive comparison. Drives of more than 3 minutes. Denver had 2. The Bills, 7 of their 8 drives. They only had 1 drive that lasted less than a minute, and it was a 1 minute and 17-second touchdown drive. Yikes, Denver. Yikes. Tailgate recap. I'll button this up because I know some of you don't love this. It was a great day to be outside, gentlemen. Chris, best tailgate weather you could have asked for in January, correct?
Yeah, I actually, when we got into the stadium, I was getting a little hot, and I just wear like long johns, a t-shirt, and sweatpants, and then coveralls that I have from Carhartt.
It was a great day. The sun came out during points of it, to the point where I wish I had brought my sunglasses.
My wife asked me if I was sunburned, like later in the night. She's like, wait, she like adjusted my face to the light. She was like, did you get sunburn? I was like, I have no idea.
As chapped as my lips are right now, I think we might have. I got to watch the sun come up over the stadium, which was awesome. Like, that's the way you want to start a playoff day, is watching the sun coming up over the stadium like that. Gorgeous day inside. There was no incidents. Everything went off without a hitch. Although there were some kids behind us who Trevor kind of made a comment about Taylor Swift. He was like, oh, the last time I was here for a game, it was against the Chiefs in the playoffs. And it was a bunch of Swifties, and they just kept talking nonsense. And so these annoying 19-year-old kids made it their mission to annoy Trevor all day by making Taylor Swift comments. And I'm not going to lie, I did kind of love it. I loved that they were getting his goat. Because it's like, dude, you don't give strangers ammunition on what makes you irritated, especially children. Guys, I got to ask you all, everyone who's watching, everybody who's listening, wasn't that fun? Wasn't that fun for a team that's supposed to be rebuilding? You go, hey, this is a year where I'm going to hemorrhage everything. Me and the team I'm playing have both shed the most dead money in the entire NFL, and we're going to go into a wild card game against each other. And it's going to be fun no matter how it turns out, because we didn't expect to be here. And then you go out there, and your team is so well coached and so damn talented that you don't just beat an opponent that had all kinds of fancy metrics that were skewed their direction. You leave their coaching staff, Chris, making faces like this on the sideline. I apologize for the quality of the photo, but I literally had to take a screenshot from the CBS broadcast. Don't
there you go.
sue me.
I took the screenshot. I asked you
good.
where it was because you left your Fubo information on the screen too.
I don't care.
Can't have that.
Here's what I love. That face is the byproduct of one of the most improbable plays in the entire wild card weekend. Vance Joseph, with that level of emotion on the sideline, got caught in real time by CBS's cameras. Don't worry, Vance, you're not alone. Yes, you are a professional defensive coordinator. And yes, you did just watch something absolutely fucking absurd happen to your team. And there's nothing you can do about it. And don't worry, you're not the first. And you're not the last. There is a whole string of defensive coordinators around the NFL who have been and will continue to be left looking exactly like that for as long as Joe Brady and Josh Allen are working together. I mean, think about all the reactions we've seen. I've seen tablets thrown, right? Belichick in that playoff game here when it was 0 degrees out. I've seen some guys just hang their head in defeat. The Spagnuolo in that game against the Bills when Josh took off on 4th and 2 and you watch Spagnuolo on the sideline just do the head hang of defeat. Vance Joseph's face there, though, that's a good one. It's shock mixed with horror and unbridled emotion of just, oh my God, what just happened to me? And it gets caught on camera. It's kudos to the cameraman who was shooting that sideline. And whoever doubted they could do it, Chris? Certainly not me, right? Like, we didn't hold any reservations. We knew they were going to pull this off, right? A lot of people expected a dogfight, myself included.
You know what? It reminded me a lot of the Jet game that ended the season. Like, you're like, we should handle these people. They're out. They would want the loss. But then it was, we needed a third quarter to expand that lead against the Jets, and it felt like that this week because what happened was the game changed on that Will Lutz miss to close the half. And then we just took it from there and ran with it.
100%. Chris D'Amato in the comments, the exact moment Vance Joseph realized he's going to have to accept the Jets head coaching job. Yes. I love it. To be fair, that was my face on the tie jet. Lauren, it was a thing, right? Chris, like that touchdown pass was...
That was in our end zone.
Yeah, and we didn't think he was in bounds.
Because of our depth perception is off. You have no idea how many times we'll watch not even that play, but a play and we're like, oh, I guess it's 2nd and 5, and it's 2nd and 9. Wow, we need to get our eyes checked.
Wait, they did what?
Yeah. I thought his foot had hit out of bounds before he caught the ball.
So did the officials, if we're being fair. They did. I mean, Chris, that's the closest thing I've seen to a running back, a wide receiver, anybody somehow like surfing across the ground without touching. But this is Ty Johnson. Think back to the catch he made against the Lions, where like that's a highly improbable catch. But even if the Lions had tried to challenge, it would have stood because somehow, inexplicably, him sliding to the ground to catch the ball, he's automatic with it. It's incredible. Now, we've got a lot of things to go over, a lot of things to just applaud in this game, some analysis for you. But I want to get my gripes out of the way early because that's still why end on a sour note. I know we're a few weeks removed from Festivus, but I got a lot of problems with some of these people. And now everyone's going to have to hear about it. I first off want to start with Taron Johnson. Taron Johnson, I love you. We all love you. This defense needs you. What I need you to do is to get back in the way back machine and go back to Pee Wee football when they teach you about heads-up tackling. Anybody who watched the replay of that hit on CBS, if you've ever played, if you've ever been around coaching, this is a textbook moment for every kid that's learning how to play football anywhere as to why you tackle heads up. You always keep your head up and you lead. You're supposed to drive with your hips. You never lower the helmet like that to make a tackle. Do you want to know why, Chris?
I have no idea.
Your coaches spend all summer screaming at you not to lower the crown of your helmet to initiate contact, specifically so that you're not exposed. You're exposing your chest to absorb the blow, not your neck and spinal column. Do you want to be a cripple? Do you want to have a wheelchair? Do you want to be the next Kevin Everett? Do not tackle like that. It's crazy. It was nuts when I saw it happen live in person, and then I got mad when I watched it on the broadcast. I go, you're a veteran player who knows better. Every kid watching football saw that hit and goes, Coach would have yelled at me for that. Of course they would have, because they're trying to keep you alive. I am shocked, and I'm happy that he's okay. But holy shit, Teron Johnson, that was dangerous.
I was surprised he even came back. I would have just kept him out just for precaution, because this upcoming week's the game that we're going to need you for.
And then I go back and just again, along the same lines, that absolute kill shot of a hit on Ryan Davis by that safety Brandon Jones from the Broncos.
Yeah.
Dog shit play. That should never happen. Not only you as that is the epitome of a defenseless receiver. And the fact that he teed off on him, not just led with the helmet, but leapt into it. He should have been ejected from the game. And a part of me, in my frustration, I tweeted out that this is the culmination, for those of you who watch hockey, there's moments in games where guys are getting mugged by defensive backs and they're getting hit downfield where they shouldn't be. There's moments in hockey games where guys are kind of spearing each other behind the play, or they're slashing and they're hitting, and you watch elbows being thrown that aren't being called, and you as an official have an obligation to get the game under control, call a penalty. Pull the captains aside and have a conversation with people. Chris, you see it happen in hockey all the time when refs need to get the game under control.
Yes.
If you don't, something bad will happen. In this game, the referees allowed the defensive backs of the Broncos to kind of have run of the shop. They were getting away with a lot of clutching and grabbing and holding, to the degree that Josh was giving it to the officials so bad they came over and yelled at him on the sideline and said, Josh, stop yelling at my officials on the field and badgering everybody. We don't like it. And Allen says he apologized, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't quite as apologetic on the sideline when they were having the conversation. With that said, I'm frustrated that it happened, because it's the referee's job when you see defensive backs taking liberties. You have to be able to rein that in. And the fact that they didn't until something bad happened, it's that's a culmination of you not stepping in and doing your job. And it's unfortunate, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. I'm looking here. Mack Hollins also laid out the hardest hit I think a Bills player has had since Milano sacked Mike White. That is correct. That is absolutely correct. In fact, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Also, I want to address the people freaking out over the Bills allowing a fake punt. I get it. People freaking out over the Bills. It's one of the lowest percentage success plays that exist. A fake punt. It's almost never a good idea.
Well, you kind of should have had that in your game plan. The discrepancy of the matchup of Buffalo and Denver, people either thought Broncos were going to cover, or it was just going to be a definite Bills blowout.
Lauren in the comments, yes, Kevin Everett game did happen against the Broncos.
Yeah. Well, that you got to know a fake's coming. They're the seven. We talked to David last week of David Talks Broncos. His whole demeanor on our show is, oh, hey, I'm just glad to be here. Denver's going to pull out those things because they're just glad to be here, and they got to take any advantage they can. Smiley should have known that was coming.
Yes, but also, are we really that upset about a fake field goal or a fake punt attempt? That yes, it landed. Woo! Also, do you stop and think about the inverse? What must the psyche of a team that feels like in the first half you have to call a fake punt? How in a one-score game, how badly must you feel like you're about to lose control of this thing if you think that you have to pull a fake punt in the first half? I don't get on Smiley for a special teams unit falling for that in that moment. One, there was no damage, but even if there had been, who cares? cares? It's early. You have the whole game to come back from it. Ooh, you stole a possession from me. I know that was Romo's thing on the broadcast. Ooh, they stole a possession. You got to be able to do that in those games. How about this? Why don't you sustain a possession? Why don't you as a Broncos team hold the ball for 3 minutes? I bet you can't. Losers. It's like, look, there are people who are smart, who pull moves like that in playoff games, and they get away with it. It's Belichickian when it works. When it doesn't work and it just becomes a footnote and what was just an ass kicking, now you just look dumb. Now it looks like a desperate play by a coach who probably knew the game was about to get away from him and he didn't have anything else in his repertoire. There was nothing left. There was no more arrows in Sean Payton's quiver, and he knew it. He was like, fuck it, we're going to fake punt. Early, we're going to fake punt.
And it didn't end up working in the end because they ended up punting anyway.
So can everybody get off? Listen, I've got my problems with Smiley. I don't think he's great. But I will tell you that that's not a moment to call for the guy's head. Because one coach way overstepping. Like, did anybody feel like the game was all of a sudden in jeopardy? No. I'm in the stands and everyone's like, why isn't Drew screaming? Because I don't care. And if I'm not yelling, what are you all upset about? I'm the lunatic here. I am the crazy person who drives you all nuts with the things that I whinge about and freak out about that don't matter. So if I'm okay, you should probably relax. Say it with me, Chris. Goose Fraba. And also, kind of a footnote. Is that guy's name Areola Grande?
Yeah, it's one of the greatest names we've seen in the chat.
All right, there we go. They're also going to have to clean up their pursuit of the quarterback. That's a thing. Throughout the game, Knicks, I mean, they did a good job and they mitigated it when they wanted to try to weaponize it. But Knicks still had a decent showing. And this is a guy who we found out was playing the game in the last month of football with a fractured back. And yet he still got outside the pocket. And also, when you look at it, of the 5 missed tackles that the Bills had, 4 of them came from defensive linemen who whiffed on hitting Nix and allowed him to escape the pocket. Nix is not the most elusive quarterback we're going to play over the course of the next however many weeks the Bills survive. They got to clean that up because you cannot allow chain moving yardage because your defensive lineman whiffed on guys in the pocket. That can't happen. It's got to be an emphasis of the coaching staff going into this week. Watch the tape. Watch the technique mistakes you guys all made. Watch how those quarterbacks set you up with a wiggle move way before you even knew you were going to make it to him, and he just sidestepped you and breezed on by. And so Jessica Tennis, I just wonder how many possessions Romo needed to steal in the playoffs. Near on pass. Yeah. Chris, is there anything else? Are there any other, before we can proceed to just party? Like the song Red Solo Cup. Is there anything else we need to whinge about or complain about?
I don't think so, other than that I had to drink that Seagram's earlier because you made it into the stadium for the.
Yes,
this
sir.
week it's Fitzpatrick, so that'll be fun. Maybe I'll have to size him up.
Oh my
Look at
God!
that. Size him up.
Chris,
It's not as
Chris, your chest hair will never be as majestic as his.
It's not as full and majestic as a Fitzmagic.
Here's a question: does Ryan Fitzpatrick come out for Legends of the Game this week shirtless?
100%. I'd put that would probably be, if you were a betting line, that would probably be like minus 1,000.
Do you want to put a Seagram's on it?
Seagram said he definitely comes. I think he's gonna be
See, I think it's going to be too cold, and I bet you he's going to do the proper thing because he's going to be like, "Well, I'm on TV."
No, his season's over. Amazon don't have another game.
I'll wager a Seagram's on it.
There we go.
One last footnote. Defensive ends not named Greg or Vaughn were non-existent as pass rushers. You guys got to wake up. AJ Epinesa being a no-show, not shocked, but disappointed. Can't disappear for games. Dwayne Smoot can't be better than you, or at least more useful than you because he can play the run. AJ Epinesa, for what he's getting paid, needs to find a way to be useful. And I just feel like he's not doing it. This next game against the Ravens, he's going to have to show up. I need him. Otherwise, I don't know what he's doing here on the roster. This almost might be like a referendum on his time here in Buffalo. It's going to come down to you of a game to prove your value here to the roster, or else it might be the last thing you do. Now, things I want to celebrate about this game. We did win the line of scrimmage in terms of our offensive line. I mean, that first play in the first half where you watched them and they just grabbed, the pile, James Cook hits it, and then you all of a sudden see the pile keep moving. Chris, being there in the stands, it was cool to watch it, where you're just like, oh, he stopped. Oh, no, he's not. Oh, they're still going. And you watch the players running around, and now they're just pulling the pile. And there's nothing the Denver Broncos can do to stop it.
Oh, yeah. I woke up on Monday, and I made sure I watched Brian Baldinger, Brandon Thorne, our friend Eric Turner, retweeting all of the All-22 from the way our lot, like Spencer Brown just, he went full. In the preview, you'll see us use a bunch of Rocky references. He went full on Drago, just killing people on the line on Sunday.
What I love is that we came into this game having a perceived disadvantage against the Denver Broncos in their defense. And we talked about how when you look at the aggregate statistics, their trench play was supposed to be better than what the Buffalo Bills are bringing to the table. And then when you take a look at the pass rush, their pass rush was supposed to be good enough to disrupt everything the Buffalo Bills are bringing to the table. And the Buffalo Bills pummeled them in that regard. Just absolutely beat them up. I mean, our offensive line is absolutely a weapon against teams that don't have massive one-techs. It's interesting because the Baltimore Ravens have this big, thick, burly, physical defensive line. The Broncos set a franchise sack record this year because most of their defensive line is made up of pass rushers, smaller, lighter players. They don't have a massive, true one-tech defensive tackle on their roster. But they do have Zach Allen, who did get a sack in the game. And it was like one of the few mistakes that happened, right? Like David Edwards makes a mistake, gets beat. Zach Allen's right in the backfield for a sack. Outside of that, Allen was kept really clean throughout the entire game. And then you turn around and they're paving the way. They said, okay, you guys are a bunch of really great pass rushers. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to run the ball down your throat. And that kept the pass rush at bay. And the pass pro, you couldn't have asked for anything else. Right? Like they kept Allen clean for most of the day, other than things that weren't, kind of still were within his control when they happened, other than the Allen sack. And then what I liked was just the power and technique combined of the interior offensive line combined with the tackle athleticism. When Dawkins knocked out their linebacker on a pulling running play, he set the edge so hard that I think he separated that guy's shoulder.
Oh, yeah. That was a fun watch.
Like, this is the epitome of, power football, and yet you have one of the most dynamic spread passing games in the NFL. That is the recipe for success in the playoffs, because you can run the ball when you have to against really good, statistically anyway, front sevens. And at the same time, you can absolutely massacre them schematically in the passing game. And that's the next thing I want to hit on. The Killer Bees. The Killer Bees were in their bag. I wish I had, if it wasn't so cold, I would have worn the Wu-Tang t-shirt tonight, because the Killer Bees were on the swarm. If you look at the defensive side of the football, right? Like Matt Milano, we didn't know if Matt Milano was going to be deemed good enough to start in the playoffs 2 weeks ago. Sean McDermott had to go into a press conference and talk to our local journalists about the idea that they weren't settled on who was going to start in the playoffs. It was just going to be whoever they felt had the best chemistry with Terrell Bernard, and also who looked the best in terms of their instincts. Now, Dorian Williams is every bit a great athlete at linebacker. But he doesn't have it between the ears right now the way Matt Milano does, and I don't think he ever will. Very few linebackers do, which is why Matt Milano's been a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro. It's why he's one of the premier talents at the position in the NFL. that was on display in this game. Not only was his stat line good, right? Like he looked good statistically if you were just looking at the box score, but also you got to think about Bobby Babich and the chemistry that Bobby Babich is finding with Matt Milano. And it's kind of unique. I want to walk you through the process of what I saw just from the stands, and then I had to go back and rewatch it at home. Bobby Babich started the game pass rushing. He was like, I'm going to load up and I'm going to blitz this rookie quarterback. And they immediately got penalized for it. You know, that long touchdown play happens because there's a breakdown with the safeties because Taylor Rapp's eyes aren't where they need to be because he's still worried about backfilling for a linebacker who blitzed. You watched Bobby Babich pivot off that and say, okay, no more blitz. I'm going to show blitz and I'm going to back out of it and I'm going to drop guys back into coverage, but I am going to crowd the line so he doesn't know who's coming and when. And that's a good pivot for a defensive coordinator, especially against a young quarterback. But the real genius of Bobby Babich comes down to when you think about what they've been defensively without Matt Milano all season long. When they do go to dime looks, they bring in an extra defensive back. This time it was Cam Lewis. You're taking a linebacker off the field in lieu of a defensive back who you think can play the run well and can also cover. Dwayne Smoot, for a while now, has been the defensive lineman who they put into the rotation. And what they do is instead of playing defensive end, they have him reduced down. He plays defensive tackle while Von Miller lines up Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, and they put their version of like a NASCAR package on the field. Bunch of defensive ends and then a 3-tech who are all going to try to penetrate and go after the quarterback. In this game, what you watched happen is that Bobby Babich took Dwayne Smoot off the field and put Matt Milano on there in lieu of a defensive lineman and allowed Matt Milano to play around the line of scrimmage as either a quarterback spy and Lauren Oubre, Milano and Babich are what we call paisanos.
I'm honorary paisano.
I do like
honorary
this.
paisano.
What I love is just watching how Bobby Babich is finding ways to get Matt Milano involved, which kind of underscores that he sees Milano as this guy who, okay, I don't love you in coverage on these obvious passing downs, and I still think you're a little rusty, whether it's your age, whether it's the injuries taking their toll. But here's what I do know. You around the line of scrimmage and your instincts around the football are better than anything anybody else on the roster has. And so especially against a mobile quarterback, I love the idea of putting you down near the line so that you can either pass rush, drop out, and just spy the quarterback. You can choose what fits the moment best within the scope of the given play call. And it worked. It worked really well. And so, like in our preview show, I kind of talk about a play from Levante David of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and how as an older middle linebacker, he made a play on Jaden Daniels this week that might have saved a score for sure because it forced a fourth down and like a 4th and 2 in the red zone that they didn't convert and ultimately gave the ball back to the Buccaneers with no damage done on the scoreboard. That's the type of impact you're hoping that Bobby Babich can continue to get out of Matt Milano. But you can see from that type of involvement that he's willing to get creative with how he uses Matt Milano if it means he can get him and just his cerebral nature onto the football field. I think that's a credit to both player and coach, just developing their own synergy. You know, this entire time we thought the most important thing was going to be Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard having chemistry. Turns out it might actually just be Bobby Babich understanding how and when to deploy Matt Milano to make this defense the most dangerous version of itself. And then when you flip to the other side of the field, when you think about the job Joe Brady did and the pre-snap motion in the second half that got the Bills so many results and allowed them to get so many favorable matchups, there is a YouTube video that I'm going to retweet. It's going to be on our Twitter handle over at Rockpile Report. There's a video breakdown that this guy did a week or two ago about he calls it the dirty 4x1, dirty bunch formations, and essentially how Joe Brady has learned how to weaponize multi-receiver formations and then mixed in pre-snap motion to just completely fuck over defenses depending on what their internal rule set is. So if you're playing match coverage and I know that you have to try to match one of your guys to mine, I'm going to bunch everybody on one side of the field. And now there's 3 different skill sets. It could be Mack Hollins, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir. I've got Dalton Kincaid and I've got a running back in the backfield. And I'm going to bring Shakir on motion. Everything you do, you're at the mercy, right? You are just at the mercy of the quarterback and what he sees and your own communication. And it pressures that opposing defense to an incredible degree. Like Keon Coleman on the 2-point conversion. He's out wide. Motion moves the safety. And now rookie Riley Moss is lined up on Keon Coleman in man coverage in the red zone. And Chris, that 2-point conversion was right in front of us in the stands.
Yes.
Riley Moss had no shot at Keon Coleman. Not ever. I mean, off the jump, it's a gross mismatch. You've got a 6'1", 193-pound rookie corner going up against a 6'3", 215-pound guy with a massive catch radius and great hands away from his body. You're never going to get, especially if you don't get him off the cut on his route. They knew that the rules of the Broncos are in this position, you play man and you man up against that guy and you press him and you hope that you can press him off his route or at least cut inside and undercut the throw. There was no hope of it happening. It's one of the easier 2-point conversion passes Josh Allen will ever have. And that's just understanding how your defender plans for a game. These 4x1 sets that we were talking about, the dirty stacks and all this stuff, it forces communication issues within the defense. And here's a perfect example, right? And I'll run through it. If you're a team that likes to match or play man, you have to identify your responsibility pre-snap without knowing. There's a million routes each one of these wide receivers could take. I have to somehow get to my guy's spot, but I can't stand there. We can't bunch because they bunched. You as a defender still have to maintain the integrity of your defensive formation. And so now you have a problem because if you pick right, you still have to cover everybody post-snap and you have no idea what the route combination might be. If you pick wrong, you're either well behind the intended target or worse, both you and somebody else picked the same guy to cover and somebody else is now downfield on a busted coverage. A perfect example of this is the Curtis Samuel touchdown, Chris.
Yes.
In a vacuum, guys, for everybody here in the comments, hey, Joe Miller in the comments. Hey, Joe, in a vacuum, do you think that Curtis Samuel, in any universe, one-on-one 50 times against Pat Surtain, how many times do you think he gets open? Maybe 5, 6? In a vacuum, that's not a matchup that should win. But with Joe Brady's formational usage, Pat Surtain's there for the ride with every other defender on the field, trying to figure out, shit, who am I covering? Where's my responsibility? All right, well, if you're taking him, then I got to take this guy. If this guy's got, and all of a sudden the ball gets snapped, and Pat Surtain's like, shit, there goes Curtis Samuel. I guess he was supposed to be my guy. And he's 2.5 steps behind him, and he never recovers. The fact that Surtain gave up his second touchdown of the NFL season to Curtis Samuel, it's not as embarrassing as it might seem if you're just box score watching. It's literally just, well, Joe, he gave a half effort because he already knew he was beat. He goes, oh no, I'm 3 steps behind after the catch, and then he took the in-breaking angle. Now I'm really behind it. I'm finished.
But you don't know if PFF is going to tally Surtain with that touchdown. That might be somebody else's fault. Might have been the safety's fault.
Yeah, it is kind of a loaf by Surtain, and I wonder if he wasn't already just like, all right, can we just get out of here? He's already seen this movie before. He knows a beaten offense when he sees one. And then he's like, oh, shit, that's my guy. All right. That's my guy, and there he goes, and I guess I have him. Oh, I don't, and neither does anybody else apparently. And he just jogs his way. Chris, didn't that look like the worst tackling?
Yeah.
We think the way Curtis Samuel shouldn't be breaking tackles downfield. Ruffles in a vacuum doesn't everything suck? Damn it, Ralph.
Yeah, when he scored that touchdown, I honestly thought he still played for the Redskins. Honestly didn't remember him ever being here because he hasn't shown up all year.
What I will say is that that play right there underscores that even transcendent talents, if you can back him into a corner and to Joe's point, kind of badger him into submission a little bit with what's going on in the game, all it takes is some proper coaching, high-level play design, and just a good quarterback who can deliver a football downfield. I mean, that's half the reason that everyone struggles to beat Kansas City, regardless of who they're trotting out at wide receiver. It's because Kansas City finds high leverage situation for their players, and they have a quarterback who can deliver an accurate football. Like, that's it. It shouldn't be as hard as we make it, or at least have made it seem to be over the last decade of Bills football. This is the easiest Josh Allen's ever had it in terms of generating a ton of points, chunk plays, and an offense that really looks like it can carry the load for an NFL team in the postseason. This is the least amount of work Josh has ever had to do personally. I love it. I love watching it happen. And then, all of you guys talking about it in the comments, there was an attitude to this game. There was an attitude to the players in this game that I think has been lacking in the past. I don't know where it comes from. One thing I think about is Sean McDermott's interview with Tyler Dunn from golongtd.com. For those of you who said it was he wrote a hit piece. Oh, he hates Sean McDermott. It's a terrible job and he stinks and I hate him. It's crazy that you all have these emotions, and yet the guy that he wrote the piece about invited him into his office to come do a second one. Just, hey, you want to come talk to me? Let's talk in my office for 15 minutes. Turned into a 2-hour interview. And in that, he pulled out a binder. He pulled out a giant packet. For those of you, I'm not going to spoil it all. Go to golongtd.com and read it because it's worth every penny. But you look at it, and Sean McDermott came into this season kind of looking himself in the mirror, going, okay, I understand that there were some things about my approach I had to change. And one of the biggest ones is that he almost bought into the idea of servant leadership, this concept of what does my team need from me? Because what I do as a coach isn't important. I'm here to be whatever they need. So if this week they need a motivator, if this week they need a facilitator, if they need somebody to get in their ass a little bit and light a fire under certain guys, I need to be whatever it is they need emotionally. And this team and this mix of players that they found a way to put together seems to have really responded to that. And this result, like the Mack Hollins and Keon Coleman and Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins, and the attitude that all four of those guys are playing this game with right now is kind of, it's what you want this whole team displaying. It's the attitude and the ethos of a team that can go into the playoffs and win a game, whether it's here, whether it's in hostile territory. You need to bring some attitude to the game. And nothing put the exclamation point on it more than Mack Hollins. I saw some people, Chris, and I would be curious to guess the average age of these people complaining about Mack Hollins. Oh, that's Bush League. That doesn't have any place in the game. Oh, you can't do that. His antics, whatever. He should be on the bench. Chris, this is exactly the guy we need. What do you want, Boy Scouts? We tried that. We tried that for almost 18 years. We drafted roster after roster after roster of really friendly, hey, I'm going to smile and take pictures with everybody, and then I'll shake my opponent's hand every single game, and we'll all, hey, guys, it's all about sportsmanship.
That punt tackle from Mack Hollins.
Yeah.
That is everything why we love Steve Tasker as a Buffalo Bill. To you, a linebacker. To everyone else, a wide receiver and special teamer. Those were the type of hits that Tasker made in the 90s. That's why we love him. And it's part of the reason why we love Mack Hollins.
100%. Joe Miller in the comments. Great leaders don't manage or supervise. They tell them when they need to be better, and they remove roadblocks to success. That's servant leadership. Sean McDermott has admittedly tried to take on more of that role this season, and you're watching a team overachieve almost because of that dynamic. Josh Clark, Mack's energy on the field when he makes a play is unmatched. It's the Gladiator's thumb down celebration on his punt coverage tackle. Yes, that is what the Buffalo Bills have been lacking. I like that Reed Ferguson got in on it. Mr. Nice Guy. And I love that everybody was reaching, like tweeting about it. And then here comes Reed after the game. He goes, guys, I was just trying to get the K-ball. It's not that serious. Not to you. It definitely was that serious to the Broncos.
I think it's only 3 K-balls per game that they get, so
yeah,
every ball matters.
And then as we round this conversation out, I would be remiss if I didn't bring this around to the Bronco chase that took place. Yes, that would be James Cook against the Broncos defense, and the fact that everybody needs to put some respect on our running back room's name. This game cemented it. If you watched any playoff football, any of the other games, even just for a little while, even for as dangerous as Derrick Henry is, I would argue that the Buffalo Bills running back room is the most multifaceted and dangerous in the entire playoff field. And now with we're on to the divisional round, even with Saquon Barkley over there for the Eagles, our room as a whole, in totality, is one of the most dangerous left in the playoff field. Like, Josh Allen gets all the glitz and glamour, but our running back stable has its fingerprints all over this victory. First of all, Chris, I want you to put up the graphics. So at the end of the season, James Cook tied O.J. Simpson's single-season touchdown record. And now he's raising the bar for production, right? He scores another touchdown. That gives him 17 on the year, which I believe ties 1996 Thurman Thomas. Now, the playoffs, he had another one, so that's 18, so he's one behind that. I do believe that that's the most prolific season in totality, both playoffs and regular season, that any Buffalo Bills running back has had. But what I like to see here is the development of the synergy of running back and offensive line against a really good front seven. We're not just splitting them out wide, giving them toss plays and letting them catch a crease off the edge. We're finding ways to generate both interior and outside runs, and not just volume statistics. This isn't Derrick Henry, 23 for 120 and one, but look at how many of those went for long gains. And we're not just getting on the edge. And that's what I love about James Cook's game. His game is developed, and so is the blocking of the offensive line, that you can now trust your team to lean on the interior of an opposing defense and create the creases that your running back needs, but his vision's gotten so good. He now knows how to set up linebackers at the second level when you seal that off properly. So when plays get blocked up well, he's not stopped for 3 or 4. He's all of a sudden getting 7 to 10 to 15 to getting drag tackled from behind by a safety. He's hitting you in the middle of the field. He's getting to the edge. And this is how James Cook changes an entire game. And not just an entire game, but an entire franchise's trajectory in the playoffs. Because he's every bit as dangerous as Derrick Henry. He just does it differently. He does it in a way where it's more about vision and the blocking of the offensive line. But those guys are dirtbags, and they're more than happy to oblige. They love it. They love what they've created there between the starting 5 and James Cook. And then you look at, like, Vance Joseph on camera losing his mind after that Ty Johnson touchdown reception. Chris, show the graphic of what that looked like, just from a dots perspective. For those, like, this is chaos. This shouldn't be a thing that happens. This is a fourth down play that is so well covered that it should be either a throwaway or a desperation diving run attempt by a quarterback. And yet they did a good job of keeping contain on Josh and keeping him in the pocket. Look at that long looping arc around the outside of the screen. That is your running back who inevitably catches a touchdown pass on the other side of the right hash. That's insanity. That shouldn't happen. And yet here we are. That's how you get Vance Joseph losing his mind on the sidelines, coming unglued, because it's one of the most well-defended fourth down plays. And it's one of the most well-covered plays, and it's one of the most improbable throws of maybe this entire NFL postseason. Josh Allen and his skill players can make it happen. So if you're an opposing team and you come into this and you go, hey, it doesn't matter. I've got a talent. I've got the talent on defense. I've got a smash mouth front seven. I've got this big burly running back, or I've got this star quarterback, and everything's going to be great. We're going to mow down the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, they also they have some bullshit of their own they can bring to the table. They really do. And Chris, there was a lot of people who I wanted to give Hero of the Week to. But you got to give it to James Cook, right?
Don't take it personally, all right? Franchise star players are a lot like Highlanders. There can only be one.
I brought this up earlier. Bronco chase. O.J. Simpson is now sitting behind. O.J. Simpson is rolling over in his grave knowing that his records are being broken by a guy named James Cook.
Wait, he's dead?
You didn't know this?
No, I knew it.
I was going to say, I understand you not... Guys, did you know this? Chris, when I say the name Carl Weathers, he just goes, oh yeah, that's Chubbs from Happy Gilmore. Never mind Predator. Never mind Rocky. No. Chubbs from Happy Gilmore. Oh yeah, Carl Weathers. That guy. I know him.
Talking about OJ from the Hertz commercials.
O.J. Simpson and that Bronco chase, he's rolling over in his grave. Because there's a new running back who's breaking long-held scoring records here in Buffalo. Imagine what that means. Think about what must be going right for the Buffalo Bills to create the kind of atmosphere where James Cook is allowed to not only have a 1,000-yard season, but also tie a long-standing, since the 70s record. And then, oh, by the way, the other most prolific running back in franchise history, Thurman Thomas. Yeah, I'm threatening to break his single season scoring record too when you include the playoffs. It's a hell of a thing to sit here and talk about a running back who doesn't get all the headlines because you have a quarterback who's such a big name. Kind of similar to what happened with Thurman. Thurman didn't get nearly his due. Mostly because Jim Kelly was here. And Jim Kelly and the K-Gun offense got all the credit. James Cook is the engine that drives this thing. If you ever try to say, hey, I'll sell out and stop the pass. I'm going to sell out on fourth. And hey, by the way, not for nothing, but Ty Johnson, close second.
Yeah.
Ty Johnson, hey, I'm going to cover everybody except for that one running back. I'll just man a DB up on him and let it happen. Or God forbid, play a zone and just cover everybody near the line of scrimmage. That linebacker can cover that running back. It'll be fine. Will it? The Lions and Broncos can both tell you it will not be. And then there's this week's zero of the game, and that's Denver head coach Sean Payton.
You look like death warmed over. Every time I look at you, I lose my fucking appetite.
Sean Payton really pissed me off in this game.
He didn't have those sunglasses on.
No, he did not have those sunglasses on, which, thank God. Otherwise, my vitriol would have been ratcheted up a notch. This might sound like hot takery here, but I think the biggest boob on the field for Denver wasn't the running back who ran out of bounds on 4th and 2. Didn't try to stretch out for a first down. Right? It was head coach Sean Payton. It wasn't Cam Sutton dropping an easy pitch and catch that should have been, Terrell Bernard almost got his hand in there, but Sutton should have had that ball, converts a first down. Maybe they don't end up punting and giving the ball right back to Buffalo, who then just goes down and scores again. Really kind of puts the game away. It's Sean Payton. Sean Payton is a guy who literally sat there with a sideline reporter after halftime, okay? At the onset of the second half says, I know that winning the time of possession battle is going to be instrumental to my ability to win the football game. I know that this is important. Denver finished this game with 18 minutes and 17 seconds of possession. That is the lowest of any Bills opponent this season. Do you want to know why? Because you ran the ball 11 fucking times. You have a rookie quarterback who's playing with a fractured spine. You are playing with a rookie quarterback against a coach who is very prolific at taking away the things that rookie quarterbacks do well. Why? Because as rookies, they haven't developed a pivot yet. Josh Allen has. If you take away his legs, he hurts you with his arm. If you take away the deep throw, he finds an underneath route. If you take away the underneath route and the deep throw, he then runs the football. He has answers for all of your questions. Unfortunately, Bo Nix as a rookie isn't there yet. You as a head coach, it's your responsibility to relieve the pressure off of your rookie quarterback. I saw some scathing rebukes of Bo Nix from this game by the Denver media and by some podcasters, but also beat reporters. And it's disappointing when you think about it. In order to win this game, you had to win time of possession. You knew it as a head coach. And then what did you do? You went out there and called exactly like 6 running plays for the entire fucking second half to protect your rookie quarterback. You're a horse's ass. If I'm a member of that team, I'm mad at my coach. Going, you set me up for failure here. You brought me into hostile territory against a team that was revved up. They were out for blood in that second half. And then they smelled it in the water when you just kept trotting us out there and throwing the ball and throwing the ball and throwing the ball. And then seeing that our concepts aren't developed enough. Our depth charts not developed enough. You know, that the rookie Vele, V-E-L-E, the wide receiver, when he also drops an easy catch. Troy Franklin drops an easy catch. These are the things that happen when you're relying on nothing but rookies to power your offense. Stop throwing the ball. Stop taking away from more veteran talents on your offensive line. Like everyone's like, oh, the running backs aren't good. But your offensive line is filled with veteran talent. It was supposed to be the equalizer between our defense and their offense. Peyton took that out of their hands and made them nothing but pass protectors. Didn't give them the opportunity to protect their quarterback by trying to impose their will through the run. It's not like the Bills' front seven is like impermeable to the rush. He didn't try. And it's inexcusable in a game where you know that you're like lose and go home. Losing your season's over. The fact that he chose to put all that pressure on his rookie quarterback underscores what a bum I think Sean Payton is.
What do you need, a Sleeman's?
I need a Sleeman's to close this bitch out. Want to wash the taste of Sean Payton out of my mouth. My final thoughts as we close this one out tonight. I'm just kind of reading through the comments. Oh, yeah, Smiley's definitely gone, guys. There's no way he comes back. Lauren Oubre, all OJ records should be broken when we play against the Broncos for poetic justice. I know, right? Like every one of them. And that's why I thought it was so funny. Like, how many more records? Like, OJ had to sit there and he's like, well, now what do I have besides a white Bronco in the middle of the summer? He's got nothing. I guarantee, like, I saw somebody make the joke on Twitter that we should crawl up there and just like, someone was like, I think I was taking a leak, and in the third quarter, I look at my phone and I see a tweet where they go, if James Cook scores one more touchdown, we crawl up there and peel OJ's name off the wall right now. I love it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm here for it. What is OJ to this franchise outside of one, like a day that almost nobody who's still alive and watching this team remembers? Like a great season. And then what, Chris? What is O.J. Simpson to you now besides a story about a white Bronco?
Mastermind of Twitter.
Mastermind of Twitter.
Hello, Twitter world. Excellent golfer. Great at Hertz commercials. NBC analyst. I vaguely remember him as a child.
Star of the Naked Gun movies.
That too. Him being on the sidelines of. That was back in the 90s when the Bills games were probably shown nationally at that point because we had been to Super Bowls, and then also the crypt keeper of Ron Goldman.
Now, here's what I love. I see a lot of this in the fake teeth. Fake teeth. He was doing veneers before anybody else. He's a great Bronco. You're right, though, Tank Ninja. Did the Ford Bronco have an audience before O.J. Simpson?
So one of my brother's friends.
Oh, good. Don't forget author. Don't forget author.
Oh,
the author of a book called If I Did It.
Hey, so in high school.
The hubris to write a book. Hey, guys, if I had committed a murder, which I probably did anyway, here's how I would have done it.
See, in high school, my brother had a friend in high school, Nick Roker. He drove a white Bronco, and they also had cowhide seats in it.
Awesome.
It was one of the cool, like when you're in high school and you might not be the one that gets like the cool car from your parents. Amongst my brother's friends, because my brother's like 2.5 years older than me, so me being a freshman and my brother being a senior, like Nick Roker was cool because he had a white Bronco.
Hilarious. Here's what I love. One of the most resounding questions now as we're singing James Cook's praises is, can we afford him? Because when you talk about running back contracts, it's been in vogue to not pay running backs. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Yes. In the movie Earthquake. Yes. This whole thing is just degenerated into a Wikipedia thing of what did this is the most anybody's talked about O.J. Simpson in 5 years.
That robbery in Las Vegas of memorabilia. Yep.
It's funny how he just couldn't stay away. It's like, dude, you got away with murder. And then you came back for allegedly. And then you came back for more. You just couldn't stay away. And then I like that Chappelle joke. He's like, oh, he goes, the court system was just waiting, like, gotcha, bitch. We knew you'd come back. They're talking about James Cook and his level of affordability. And I mean, it's a great question because he's become an integral part of the offense. And I don't know that it's as easy as everybody thinks it is to just go out and draft another dynamic running back. I mean, look at the Seahawks. They drafted Kenny Walker, and then they drafted another
Zach
Charbonnet, and just assumed that it would be dynamic and and it hasn't worked that way. It's a primary reason they missed the playoffs this year. They lost the ability to run the football dynamically. So if James Cook is gelled in this system and with your quarterback and everything else, maybe it makes sense to try to retain him rather than paying another wide receiver. But at what cost? What are we talking about at a time when you got to find a way to maybe pay Terrell Bernard and who else?
Greg Rousseau, Cook,
Shakir, Benford. You've got all these contracts coming up. Like for all the people who looked at the salary cap space the Bills were opening up and said, hey, we're going to be able to be huge players next year in free agency. We're going to roll the dice in 2024 and just see whatever happens. It'll be nice. You're seeing that this is still a championship caliber team. Now the question is, who can you afford to retain? And that's a hell of a place to be if you're a GM. I don't envy Brandon Beane in the position that he's stuck in.
That's why we rely on smart people. I put it in the comments. Matt Waldman. Yep. We'll have a show with him in the offseason. We'll discuss it. See what's available in the draft.
Tank Ninja. Depends on if we can bring the palm trees to Buffalo. The Sabres suck, and it's so sad, and it's slowly killing my wife.
That's an IOU. That's as good as cash.
Yes. So, as we kind of wrap the show, the Bills may prioritize Cook over Benford. I'm not going to lie to you. That's not that hot of a take. Benford might be the most popular cornerback on the market as a free agent. And at a certain point, you might go, hey, you're in my scheme and you've been really successful, but you're not a high-level athlete. Maybe you're going to peerless price yourself. I'm going to give you Brandon Beane will probably do Brandon Beane things and go, look, here's what I value you at. For all of these guys, here's where I value you. If you value yourself better than that, go on. Have at it. Now, do you know how much easier that gets if you have a Lombardi in the trophy case?
Mm-hmm.
That's why these next 2 weeks are so important, guys. If you have an AFC title in the case and you can get an AFC championship ring on everybody's hand on this roster, I think that goes a long way towards fixing a lot of the hand-wringing that we're doing about who wants to stay, well, how can you afford everybody. If you put a Lombardi in that trophy case, then maybe you don't even care. Maybe at that point,
dude,
you do a second cat teardown and you go, hey, guess what? Everybody get out.
We cannot bypass this.
Everybody get out.
We can't bypass this.
Yeah.
Steve Noble, my friend's aunt used to date OJ. I got to meet him, and as an 8-year-old, he was very terrifying. Holy shit.
Steve, you and Iman have to get together and we need to record you two just telling your life stories, because you two, my wife hears all these random tales that Iman will tell about his life and she goes, oh, so you're a vampire, because that's the only way you've lived long enough to have all these wild experiences. I guarantee you, if I get the two of you together, we could do a 7-part miniseries about my crazy ass life starring Steve Noble and Iman Azizi. I can't wait to do it. It's hilarious. Hey, Tank Ninja, get a couple of drunken run it backs in the Super Bowl parade. That's right. Exactly. I think that if you can win big this year, it'll dictate who wants to keep it together and run it back. Rasul Douglas might decide I'm willing to take a little bit less to try to run it back with a team that I won the AFC with. Or hell, maybe I got to touch a Lombardi because I was allowed to be a part of this team. I'll come back for less. Or maybe you go the opposite way and you say, hey, who gives a shit? All of you guys get out and we'll rebuild, because our fans will they'll still be celebrating like the Bills fan base with a Super Bowl in their back pocket would party like Alexander Ovechkin did, where every single player who wins the cup is supposed to have it for their own day. And Ovechkin just kept showing up to party with the cup wherever it went. People would be at their house and Ovechkin's just like, they'd look, having dinner with their family, and Ovechkin's just at the window looking in like, hey, I've got a case of liquor outside. You guys want to get wild with the cup? He did it for an entire summer. That's how Bills fans would be like into October. The team would pare down the entire roster, start the season 0-5, and no one would notice. It would still be party time across America for Bills fans. But for a 5th straight year, the Buffalo Bills have left an opposing head coach or head coordinator making hilarious faces on national television, just as they exit Ralph Wilson Stadium a loser. It's impressive the run that we have been on in the wild card round. And in the process, we flex some things that are going to absolutely be necessary and need to be present if the Bills think we can get to that point, where we can talk about being AFC title contenders. If we can talk about maybe getting a sniff at a Lombardi. Toughness, aggression, high-level execution, and just the luck of the devil. Just breaks that go your way where no other team would get that. That running back pass in the back of the end zone, Chris. How many other players can keep their legs elevated as they're sliding across the ground? Like, do you know that the percentage possibly, like the percentage of like that being a touchdown?
I mean, Ty Johnson had to have like, okay, I'm running the line. I got like, I'm going to dive for this. And also I can only let my thighs touch the ground. I mean, I don't know how you do that. That's
body control.
That's called body control and athleticism. Something that your son knows you don't have.
He looked at Kyle Williams, and he looked at me, and he was like, "Oh no, Dad sucks. Dad stinks compared to this guy." And honestly, I think it's that last one that's the most important. Or at least the last couple, right? The aggression. You're going to have to be tough. if you're going to make it out of the AFC, you're going to have to spend the rest of this postseason being the hardest nosed version of yourself that's ever existed. And I don't know how many players can elevate their game to that point. We've seen Keon Coleman do it. We know Mack Hollins has it. We've watched Mr. Nice Guy, Reed Ferguson, do it. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things of all time when I was talking about Reed getting into that fracas over the weekend and drawing the flag. Reed got into a fist fight with a defensive tackle from the New York Jets like 2 or 3 years ago. It was the time it was our second AFC title. And they punted the ball. Jets punt, routine play. I'm talking to my dad. I'm like, all right, they punted, whatever. And I'm turned around talking to my dad. And all of a sudden he kind of taps me on the chest and goes, hey, isn't that your buddy? And I turn and look, and it's just Reed and this guy in a cloud of snow, and they're both throwing haymakers. And so the refs are coming and flags are flying. And I asked him afterwards, I go, what happened back there? And he goes, he said something to me and I wasn't going to let it go. And I go, what'd he say? To this day, Reed will not repeat it. He goes, I just had no choice. It was go time. The entire team has to find that. They have to find their way to that level of aggression. They have to maintain a high level of execution while they find it. And it's going to take the luck of the devil. It's going to take some real Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, the refs weren't looking. They didn't see this. The stars aligned. This guy was offsides. This guy pass interfered at the right moment. If you're all of those other things and you get lucky, that's how you become a Super Bowl champion. I love it. I love our odds. I love our chances. And I think that this game coming up against the Ravens, coming out of this game, your confidence is at an all-time high for the Bills. It's got to be the highest it has been all season. You're healthy. Your coaching on both sides of the football was exemplary. You outclassed your opponent in every single phase of the game. Now it's time to put your big boy pants on and go play Hoss-style football. And it's not going to be fun. It's going to be in the cold. It's going to be in shit weather. Are you up to it? The answer to that is going to dictate whether or not the Buffalo Bills have a shot to be Super Bowl champions. I can't wait. Make sure you check out the show we recorded earlier tonight with Ken McCusick from Ravens Film Study or Film Study Ravens, where we kind of broke down.
I'll have it out Thursday morning.
He's a very cerebral individual who I don't know why he bothers talking to idiots like us, but he actually enjoys it. I feel like he likes coming down from his intellectual tower every now and again to talk to people like Chris and I.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's always a fun time.
And he's going to be here for the game on Sunday, and Drew and I, and hopefully our wives, we're going to get together with Ken and his wife on Saturday night. It'll be fun.
I live in NOLA for 15 years. Let me know if you need a tour guide, Steve. It'll only cost you a Super Bowl ticket. Josh Clark, I have that level of aggression just dealing with Ravens fans on the internet. They're truly insufferable. I'm just going through the comments here before we wrap. It's awesome that this thing is becoming a rivalry.
Yeah, we have to win because I don't want to hear any more of Jerry Coleman.
Well, and do you mean Earthworm Jim's ugly brother?
Yeah.
That guy looks like a worm with hair. It's hilarious. Here's what I'll say. Great rivalries and real vitriol is born from conflict in the postseason. Meaningful football games played against each other. We haven't had a real rivalry. Since Josh Allen became the quarterback of the Bills, the rest of the AFC East has sucked. It's been it's shambles. Look around the AFC. It's us and the Chiefs, but the problem is the Chiefs keep winning titles. I don't know if we have a rivalry, but I love that we're building one with the Ravens because they have been kind of the gold standard of physical football and just smash mouth tough guy football for the last decade and a half. I love that this fan-on-fan crime, fan base versus this fan base stinks, this city sucks, this city's full of dirtbags. I love it. I love this. I want to roll around in it like a dog that found something in the yard. This is what real quality rivalries are built on. Meaningful football games where there's lots at stake. Teams with good quarterbacks who are both vying to try to carve out their own legacies. You know, that's what fueled the Bills and Dolphins in the 90s. It was proximity, and it was two quarterbacks who were both trying to get the chip off their shoulder and win a Super Bowl. Turns out neither one of them did. Hopefully, Allen and Lamar don't end up the same way. But this is a fun rivalry, even if it feels toxic. You got to enjoy it, or at least I will. You don't have to do anything, right? It's a free country. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. This week is going to be a long one, right? I've been waiting all day for Sunday night. I've been waiting all week for Sunday night. I can't wait for this game. Check out our preview show. But guys, I feel like Peter Venkman, and we're about to cross the streams because this could potentially be our last live stream where the Buffalo Bills are still in the playoff race. I love it. I think it's whatever comes on the other side. I love you guys, but we got to get the hell out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. And this has been your Rock Pile Report.